Imagine trying to pole vault over a swamp after failing to cross the highway with pigs and boats whizzing by at 50 miles an hour, then tiptoeing into a shower stall to steal various items from a very angry gym teacher before finally blowing up a bar with dynamite. In the entire history of the civilized world, that sentence should never exist. Yet it does, because back in 1983, 20th Century Fox looked at the Atari 2600 and said, let's make the movie Porky's into a video game. Yes, that Porky's, the hilarious and classic rated R teen sex romp turned into a video game for the Atari 2600. Porky's was indeed a hilarious movie that I had to sneak around my mom just to watch. The film was rated R, but the cartridge might as well be E for everyone who enjoys headaches. Pop it in, try it out, and you'll see why this thing is sometimes considered a meme in retro Discord channels. 20th Century Fox had already ported several of their movies into games for the 2600, but Porky's might have been the wackiest of them all. You're Pee Wee Morse, an awkwardly moving fellow that for some reason has a loosely fitting toupee that bounces hilariously as he moves around the playfield. The game opens with Pee Wee standing in front of a 5-lane death strip that looks like Frogger and Freeway got together with Deliverance and had an ugly baby. Traffic includes piglets, cop cars, actual boats on land somehow, plus a leftover stripper sprite the devs must have pinched from Custer's Revenge. Steering Pee Wee feels like pushing a shopping cart across black ice, miss a beat, and splat, down into a neon green swamp with Porky's visible in the distance. Down in the swamp, the game shows off its crown jewel, pole vaulting. I'd love to have been a fly on the wall when the programmer was batting around ideas for the game and finally came up with this particular scenario as one of the game's starting points. Bricks hover in midair like forgotten clip art. You wiggle the stick to build a ladder one brutal brick at a time. Time to launch to exactly 78 hundredths of a second, missed by a hair, and it's back down into the murky swamp. It's the pit of hell, because that's where you'll spend most of your time. When the ladder is finally tall enough, the game shoves you into one of the strangest stealth segments ever programmed into a video game. Cut to the locker room showers. A side-scrolling maze. Is that supposed to be the pipes? Are those drain tiles? And is that one ferociously pixelated Mrs. Beulah ball bricker? Your mission? Swipe 3 items. A plunger, a cherry bomb, and hey, is that a diaphragm? Sneak around an inch along like Solid Snake with a heat stroke and pray the gym teacher doesn't see you. If she catches you, then bam, you're tossed back down into the swamp of hell for yet another round of pole vaulting madness. The whole scene is incredibly silly, and it really makes me wonder how the game's designers ever dreamed this whole thing up. Think Metal Gear if the big boss were your middle school librarian and codec calls were replaced by rubber ducky squeaks. Grab all 3 MacGuffins and the game rewards you with a wobbly scaffold stage. Porky patrols the bottom just looking for a chance to kick your ass back down into the drink so you can hone your pole vaulting skills some more. Now search for the correct ladder that you can't see that's maybe 2 pixels wide, and finally slam the plunger onto Porky's roof. The bar detonates and sinks into the swamp. My first time playing Porky's was at my best friend Will's grandparents' house. This was probably sometime in late 1983 or the first part of 1984. It took me quite a while to figure out what the hell was going on since I didn't have the instructions to tell me what exactly to do. I eventually blew up the bar and finished the game. It's actually pretty easy once you master the pole vaulting over the swamp and get used to the awkward controls, climbing up ladders and things like that. The game doesn't have any variations of any kind, but both difficulty switches and even the color and black and white switch are used to increase the difficulty to a much more challenging level of play. Believe me, it's a lot harder. 1983 was the year the industry imploded. From a historical standpoint, E.T., incorrectly, in my opinion, and I'm sure yours too, takes most of the blame for the crash, but oddball titles like Porky's were a major contributor to the crash also. Too messy for kids, too goofy for teens, too embarrassing to leave in the living room cabinet. Retailers piled copies of games like Porky's into bargain bins next to even worse dregs like Skeet Shoot and Space Jockey. And history buried the entire industry until Nintendo came along a few years later and resurrected it from its grave. There's something else I wanted to go over with y'all. It concerns the game Tax Avoiders. And let's talk about that real quick because it has something in common with Porky's. Now, I didn't really take the time to learn how to play this, but if you listen to this thing, the sound effects, the little sprite. Now, this screen here looks like a stripped down version of the locker room from Porky's. When you fall, it sounds like one thing I did notice though is that the dude's hairpiece must be glued better this time because it doesn't seem like it bounces off his head when he falls. But this is what it looks like. It's just those two screens. Okay, I showed y'all that. Now let me show you what I found on Atari about the game. What I found on Atari Age, I should say. Okay, this is way back in April 2004. Thought y'all might all find this interesting. Posted below are the email conversations I had with a fellow whom I believe to be the true Tax Avoiders programmer. Well, him and his team anyway. Just saw your webpage online. Was wondering if you could tell me what you did for the Atari 2600. I'm actually working on an anthology project here for the 2600. Hope to hear from you soon. I designed and co-wrote the Porky's video game for the Atari 2600. LM, that I co-owned at the time, did several other trivial things as well. Now, I don't know if I saw what LM is. We'll see. Thank you for getting back to me. If I may, what other titles did you work on for the Atari 2600? Did LM do anything else for the 2600? What happened to them? Who co-wrote Porky's with you? Anything you can tell me is greatly appreciated. I also apologize for hitting you up with tons of questions. Many thanks. Most of the other titles were tax scams that LM developed to sell as a loss so rich people could get tax write-offs. A few of those games had to actually appear in stores, and they usually did for under $5 in weird toy stores in order to make the tax write-off legit. We probably did about 10 2600 games this way. They were all slight modifications of one another. I don't have the titles because we didn't give them titles. The accounting firms that sold the games named them. They weren't real games anyway. Another neat thing we did was develop a custom ROM chip that had a couple of special features, auto-incrementing, indirect pointer registers, and stuff like that we could use to speed up certain time-critical instruction sequences. I think Coleco may have used the chip design in one or two of their games, but I left LM before that point. Okay, and of course the game is called Tax Avoiders, which makes it even more funny. Now, the Tax Avoiders cartridge says it was made in 1982, but according to what some of the people in this thread said, there were two people that said they bought it in 1986. In fact, one of them said December of 1986. So my initial thing was, what came first? I naturally thought it probably was Porky's, but I wondered because they, like you saw in the game, they're the same in some ways. But it's obvious that Tax Avoiders was just it was Porky's code ripped off, basically. But I just thought that was incredibly interesting. Tax Avoiders, to avoid paying taxes. It's not that rare. I think it's like a 5. So if you wanted to get one, you could get one. Wouldn't break the bank. Got a terrible cowlick thing going here. Don't you hate that happens? I didn't ask y'all. Most of y'all that are my age, I'm sure you've seen Porky's. I'm sure if you haven't and you like those raunchy sex type comedies, you should definitely check it out. It is a hilarious movie. I wish I could have put clips from it in the video, but you get flagged, for copyright stuff. So, but I remember that was the first place that I remember hearing the Mike Hunt. Mike Hunt. Mike Hunt. H-N-U-T. Man, we did that one time. We did that one time at school. with a substitute teacher. Yeah, it was funny, just old 80s stuff. But if you haven't seen it, you really ought to. It's a great movie. I may watch it this weekend because I ain't seen it in a few years. Now, did you ever play Porky's? Did you own a copy of Porky's? Did it appear under your Christmas tree? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from y'all. Thanks a lot. Like, share, subscribe. Later!